All rise. The Lawyer of the Apes is now in session. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 15 of Lawyer of the Apes. Today, we're going to talk about NSCC 2021-010. I know everyone's really excited about this rule change that is being proposed. I just wanted to go over the particulars of it in regards to the legal aspects of it. Why is it taking so long? Where is it heading? How much longer will we have to wait for it to be implemented? I'm not going to comment on whether or not I believe that this is going to trigger anything that is way above my pay grade. I don't get into that aspect of the stuff, but I do talk about the legal implications, what some of this stuff, within the order means, and the timing of everything. So let's take a look really quick. So this is what came out just a couple of days ago. On November 5th, the SEC issued this announcement. So what happened was, this was originally published, filed in July. Then they submitted the published comments in the Federal Register in August. And then at that time, after they received the comments, they have three choices. They can either approve the rule change, disapprove the rule change, or they can open it up for further determination. And that's what they did in this case, right? They chose to not approve it, not deny it. Instead, they chose to open up proceedings, right? So proceedings just basically means opening up for people to submit why they believe it should be approved or disapproved. So this basically here is what the summary of the rule is. It says that its purpose is to establish securities financing transaction clearing service to make central clearing available at NSCC for equity securities financing transactions, which are broadly speaking transactions where the parties exchange equity securities against cash and simultaneously agree to exchange the same securities in cash plus or minus a rate of payment on a future date. Establish new memberships and requirements, et cetera, and so forth. Everyone on the Twitter and Reddit calling this the pawn shop rule. Basically, they're seeing it as a way for the hedge funds to basically, insulate themselves, cash out some equity in the event of the short squeeze. So basically, this is a little bit more information on it. You guys can read that part. I'm going to get into the legal aspect of it. So if you go down here, here's where we get into the legal aspect. So proceedings to determine whether to approve or disapprove the proposed rule change, right? And grounds for disapproval under consideration. So let's check this out, right, guys? It says the commission is instituting proceedings pursuant to section 19B2B of the Act. All right, so that's citing to something, right? That's citing to an act. So let's go check out that code. I have it right here waiting. So they said 19B, let's see, just double check, 19B2B. So we have 19B, right? Small b, number 2, capital B, proceedings. So here we go. So that's exactly what we're talking about, proceedings, right? Notice and hearing. If the commission does not approve or disapprove a proposed rule change under paragraph A, which was the first step in the process, like I said, first step in the process, submit a proposed rule change, approve, disapprove, or open proceedings. So they didn't approve or disapprove. The commission shall provide to the self-regulatory organization that filed the rule change 1, notice of the grounds for disapproval under consideration. So that's important. They have to let everyone know why they may be considering disapproving this rule, right? That has to be submitted, and which they did, and we'll get into those. And number 2, opportunity for hearing to be concluded no later than 180 days after the date of publication of notice of the filing of the proposed rule change. So that was the original filing date. So the original filing date was back over the summer in July. So July, August, September, October, November, December, January, right? So it's saying it can't go any further than into January. Or 180 days if you want to get the exact. I mean, I just did 6 months off the top of my head, but 180 days is the exact. They can't go over that in deciding whether or not to implement the rule change or not. So now that we understand where this is all coming from, let's scroll down a little bit. All right, so now we look at, again, they cite to the section that I just read to you guys, 19B2B. The commission is providing notice of the grounds for disapproval under consideration. So right here, right, it said under the rule, section 1 of that rule, that they have to let everybody know what the grounds for disapproval under consideration are. So what happened was people submitted a bunch of comments, right, during the process, the initial process. And when the commission reviewed those proposed issues that people had in objecting to it, they said to themselves, okay, well, if we are going to disapprove this rule, these are the possible reasons why, based upon what people have submitted to us. So they have to let everybody else know now what those rules are, right? While they continue to ponder this, and give everyone an opportunity to submit grounds for why they think it should be approved anyway, notwithstanding the idea that they have these thoughts in their head as to why they believe it could be disapproved. And this is important because remember, a couple weeks ago, Citadel took the SEC to court, and they were arguing that they acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner. So, following this system, right, that is set up, by the act, they are insulating themselves from, being told that they acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner. So by following these guidelines and by doing all this, they are just covering their, butts basically, so they can ensure that, if anybody does appeal this order, they won't get reversed by the Court of Appeals. So it's important. I know timing is everything and things are frustrating, but when you really look, at the heart of the rules, they make sense, and they're there to protect the commission. The commission isn't just dragging their feet. It's not like they are just saying, oh, well, we got to kick the can. These are rules that have been around forever. These are not new rules. So these are just the method by which they have to follow in order to make sure that a new rule that's implemented isn't going to get overturned. So here are the 3 reasons. They give summaries, but I think the best way to really understand things is to actually look at the whole statute. So they say these are the 3 possible reasons that there might be a disapproval. So basically, it says here, the commission is interested in proceedings to allow for additional analysis of input from commenters with respect to the proposed real change consistent with 17A of the Act and the rules thereunder, including the following provisions. So they're saying you could submit arguments about why they're wrong, about why these parts of the Act might conflict with the rule, which might lead to a disapproval. So the first one is 17A B3F. All right, so let's take a look at that. So here we go. I have it already set up here. Rule F. The rules of the clearing agency are designed to promote the prompt and accurate clearance and settlement of securities, and to the extent applicable, derivative agreements, contracts, and transactions to assure the safeguarding of securities and funds, et cetera, and so forth. So basically, the rule, it's summarized in the first sentence. The rules of the clearing agency are designed to promote the prompt and accurate clearance of settlement and securities transactions, right? So basically, the question is, does this section F, conflict with the new rule that wants to be implemented? In that, does it still allow the ability for clearing agencies to promote the prompt and accurate clearance of settlement of securities? So that's really the question. So people on both sides are now going to submit, their argument for or against on why they believe that this rule will not be impacted by the new rule. So that's the first rule. So basically, they want to make sure that even if they implement this new rule change, will it have an impact on the prompt and accurate clearance of settlement of securities transactions? So that's the first thing. So then the second section is 22E71. So let's take a look at 22. Let's scroll down to E71. Okay. So 7.1, effectively measure, monitor, and manage the liquidity risks that arise in or are borne by the covered clearing agency, including measuring, monitoring, and managing its settlement and funding flow on an ongoing and timely basis, and its use of intraday liquidity by, at a minimum, doing the following: maintaining sufficient liquid resources at the minimum in all relevant currencies. All right, so basically, they're saying in this, making sure that these clearing agencies are liquid, right? So they're basically saying, okay, under this new rule, will this impact the clearing agencies to the point to keep this rule in place? Will they be able to maintain sufficient liquidity with this rule? And based upon the writing of the rule, I would say that it would. I mean, that essentially is what they want to do, right? They want to ensure that they're going to maintain liquidity. So I don't really see how this one conflicts. But again, that's going to be open to people's opinions on it and submitting arguments. And then the third rule that they say it may conflict is 22E8. So we already we did 22. Now we're at, let's just go back and double check. We're at E, which we were at. We did E7. Now we're going to do E8. So E8 says, define the point at which settlement is final to be no later than the end of the day on which payment or obligation is due, and where necessary or appropriate, intraday or in real time. Okay, so here they're saying basically that settlement, under the rule can be no later than 1 day. So the question is, under this new rule, where they're going to be trading, where they're basically going to be exchanging, cash for assets, is this going to be able to still be closed by the end of the day? And that's going to be an important question to answer. So I would really, look, this is what the statutes say. The rule itself is basically suggesting that there's going to be, it seems to suggest that it may not be able to be done at the end of the day. So that's interesting to see if that will be one of the arguments that are raised by some of the individuals that are in opposition to this rule. So I look forward to reading, these, proposed arguments from both sides, because nothing is clear. I mean, obviously everyone will argue, oh yeah, no, of course it's definitely going to go through in 1 day, or this won't be an issue, or that won't be an issue. But again, nothing is black and white when you're dealing with strict, very difficult to interpret statutory construction. And you have to at least make sure that everybody gets their say in order to protect yourself and insulate yourself from being called arbitrary and capricious. So where does this leave us now? So we're going to have to wait for people to comment on these rules, and how they may or may not conflict with the new rule. And then let's talk about timing, right? So timing of it is, so they have 21 days from publication in the Federal Register. Now, as of today, I didn't see that this was published in the Federal Register. So there'll be 21 days to file arguments in the Federal Register, and rebuttal comments should be submitted. It's not 21 plus 35. If you look at the language here, it says 35 days from date of publication in the Federal Register. So basically, the date of the publication in the Federal Register, whatever that date is, let's say it's November 10th, right? So then November 10th, people will have 3 weeks basically to submit all the information that they want to argue. And then if somebody wants to respond to one of these comments that were made over the last 3 weeks, they're only going to have an additional 2 weeks to submit a comment or a rebuttal to the information that was provided by somebody for an argument. Now, I didn't go into everything in great detail because people don't want 40-minute videos, but I intend on going through each of these rules in significantly more detail. I'm going to reach out to a couple of other individuals and hopefully do a joint effort with them. Maybe David or Goliath, Shortovitz, or whoever, Trey or somebody that we can, have a dialogue, Dave Lauer even, about, these rule changes and how they may or may not conflict. But as of right now, I just wanted to give you guys the rundown on, what the timeframes are and why this rule was implemented. And to me, the most interesting part about the whole thing is that under the rule, they have to let everybody know why they are considering to not deny it. It's interesting, in the legal system, right? The judge doesn't tell you in advance, well, I may be ruling against you, but here are the 3 reasons why. So I'm going to give you a chance to convince me otherwise. That this section of the rule, this rule section is interesting because it actually affords an opportunity basically for you. They sort of like have to show you their hand, right? They're saying, all right, well, this is why we think we might have to overturn this rule or not implement this rule, but tell us why we're wrong, which is a really interesting aspect of everything. So I hope the video is a little bit helpful. I know it's frustrating that, this is not going to be implemented tomorrow. And also remember, just because it says on the 35th day, that's the last day for rebuttals. So remember, the last day for rebuttals is on the 35th day. That doesn't mean on the 36th day, they're going to give us an announcement on whether or not the rule is going to be implemented or not. They still have to review all the documentation and digest it. And based upon that section, they have at least up until 180 days from the initial filing. So that's also something to keep in mind and in the back of your head. So that's basically it for now. If anybody ever has any questions, you can always reach out to me on Twitter or leave a comment down below, and I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you like the content, hit the like button. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, guys, for now, have a great night. Until next time, the Lawyer of the Apes is adjourned.